will also take the opportunity, actually. I know you've previously had a meeting with the Speaker and the team here. Oh, it was not, okay. There was another meeting. I think it involved, and some may have involved some of your colleagues. Oh, we're there, okay. And we've already noted the excellent working relationship with the EU, the very significant contribution that you are making to our country in that bilateral relationship as a parliament and also support for the government. So we would like once again to thank you very much for that, and we don't take it for granted. So thank you indeed. Thank you very much. Now, probably, I believe it's the same role of parliaments around the country, and we abide to the principles of the Commonwealth Parliament. We are members of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, and our role in Parliament is mainly in 4 areas. And the first one is representation. We represent our people, the people who elect us, first and foremost. So I may be chair of the committee, but my allegiance, first and foremost, is to the people who elect me. I believe that is universal. Then the second one is legislation. So within that area of legislation, of course, we have as a committee, we have responsibility for Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development and for the Ministry of Water and Environment. So all their legislative work, they come through, of course, the plenary, and then they refer to us as the specialist committee on that. Then we have the role of appropriation of budget. Although it's a little bit within a bit of a straight jacket, because it goes through a very long process and it's brought to us in the end, at the final stages of the process. Now we have the responsibility of scrutinizing it and then ensuring that it's, first of all, that's representation of the needs of our people, the people that we represent, but also that it's aligned to the National Development Plan. Now we have NDP 3. I think that's a very significant process which we do. Sometimes people make a mistake and we are accused of not allocating enough money for this and that, but normally the budgets come already allocated, that this is the amount which should go to this is the amount which should go to this. Of course, we look at it and then we try to jiggle it a bit. We may change a bit here and there, but not significantly. And of course, with the internal checks and balance of the democratic process, we take our final recommendation to the budget committee, and then the budget committee takes it to plenary. So those are the checks and balances within. And then the final one, that's the oversight responsibility. Looking at the budgets that we allocated, have they been the activities have they been implemented in relation to what we agreed, what Parliament had in mind? So that's the oversight responsibility. And so whatever we discuss is broadly within that framework. Now often people make a mistake and they see us as part of the executive, but we are not part of the executive. And normally we come up with a recommendation which we expect the executive to implement. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. But of course, we expect normally Treasury memorandums showing how what was recommended has been implemented. So that's us. That's the background from which we are coming to this meeting. So over to you, sir.
Chair, Honorable Shiwanuka, first of all, I would like to express on behalf of my colleagues our deepest appreciation for having accepted to meet us In a small configuration, I wouldn't like to say that these are the most committed European Union ambassadors as far as environment is concerned. We are all committed, but definitely those pushing the hardest are here in this room. And I'm delighted to be supported by so many colleagues, all willing to have an exchange with you and with the Parliament, because indeed, as you have said, we have very, very clear in mind the division and the clear separation between the functions and the duties and the responsibility within government of the executive vis-à-vis the Parliament. And we thought that perhaps it's never enough, but we have had a number of engagements with the executive on issues under your responsibility, and we thought that it was time, and it was proper to have an exchange of views with you as well, because the issues at stake are huge, are extremely important, and we are delighted to have the opportunity to have a meeting with those who have a vision in the environment. Because at the end, I personally, now I want to introduce a personal note, I feel very bad for what I have done and for the kind of world I'm going to hand over to my son and my daughter. It's not the same kind of world I got from my father and from my grandfather. We have done damages. We have done damages, some of them are irreparable. Some of them perhaps can be mended. And while being in Uganda, one of the responsibilities we have, of course, it is about representing our countries, representing the interest of our countries, finding a way to have a dialogue with the executive, with the civil society, with the legislators, but also to take a deeper look into the challenges that you are going through as much as the challenges we are going through. And there is one set of challenges which are exactly the same. Climate change, environment, the way we are dealing with issues all around us. This happens in Europe. Europe recently has come up, at least our leaders have finally, I say, on my side, on my behalf, finally have come up saying we have to do things in a different way. The agenda of Europe in the future will have to be focusing more and more and more on what we call the green economy, changing the way we live, changing the way we deliver and we produce goods. At the end, Europe is this. It's about converting something to something else, because we have nothing ourselves. So we have, for thousands of years, always struggled to add the value to little things. And this is something that you are going through as well. It's absolutely crucial. But do we do it in the right way? Do we do it in a sustainable way? Can we do it forever? Can we forever keep doing something that is now being done everywhere else in the world in the wrong way? Using energy which is polluting, using resources which are becoming less and less and less. And so with my colleagues, we had a look to the natural environment, which somehow in Europe is recovering, actually. There is already a sign that things are slightly getting better. But when we come to this beautiful country, and unfortunately, or fortunately, I was posted here already 25 years ago. I was here from 93 to 97. It was a beautiful country as much as it is a beautiful country now, but it was much greener before. There were forests everywhere. I remember it was a green corridor all the way from Entebbe to Kampala and a green wall of forest all the way from here to Fort Porter, everywhere. A lot has changed. A lot of us changed. And when recently we met a number of people who, as much as those elected in parliament, care about this country, and we heard about Bugoma, we heard about the Murchison Fall, the dam that somebody thought could be built, should be built on this beautiful spot which attracts millions of tourists every year. When we heard about Zoka Forest, which apparently somehow people are using to do something which should be done in a different way. When we heard about the struggle of a lady who is trying to breed rhinos and make use of a beautiful area not far from Nakasungola, I'm referring to the Ziwa farm in Nakitoma, the rhino sanctuary, and so on, so on, so on. Then we said maybe it's time that we raise a little bit the attention, our own attention to those issues, and we start exchanging views with the executive. And I said, sorry, that was not enough. We should have said the executive and the legislator as well. And that is why we are here, and I apologize. Because we should have come much earlier. Right. We had a little exchange time ago. Must have been 2 years ago, maybe Jalia, you may help me on that. Was it around 2 years ago? We had a little exchange with a team of the parliamentarians working on environment. about 2 years ago, but it was a very preliminary exchange of views, and we were not necessarily blind in those days, but we could not see things as we do now, and things don't look good, frankly. That is why we have decided together to go on a joint mission actually it's next week already, to those areas to help those who have already shouting and yelling and raising the finger, said there is a problem here, because we would like to understand better, and we would like maybe to give them further motivation and to help them in their struggle. In Bugoma, in those advocating against the dam on the Nile River, and I understand the government has already decided, but also last year the decision was made, and then somebody came back with it, and also Zoka, and many more issues of this kind. So we thought it's time for Europe to help those who are already working in these areas, and maybe by joining forces we could push this agenda to move a little bit faster. That is why I thought maybe it was useful to seek an audience with you.
Yeah, and that's excellent.
And Attilio Pacifici is my name. I'm the European Union ambassador, and maybe I should give a chance to my colleagues to introduce themselves.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Excellent.
My name is Per Lindgärd. I'm the Swedish ambassador. I've been here now for 4 years, and I only have 1 year to go, unfortunately. 5 years is the maximum.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Matthias Schauer. I am the ambassador of Germany, and I arrived just 3 months ago. And I've seen a little bit of your beautiful country, the Mburu Lake Park and Murchison Falls, and I just spent the weekend, or the end of last week and Saturday, up in Gulu, where I had the honor to inaugurate a water treatment plant with your president. And I told him in my speech very clearly, we are building a pipeline of 72 kilometers to supply water to Gulu, from the Nile River to Gulu. Why is this necessary? Because wetlands and forests have been encroached upon, because there is not enough groundwater coming back to supply the city of Gulu. So this is an example of how short-term profit thinking damages the environment for very, very many people, and needs a lot of money to compensate for that. So this is one aspect. We need to think on a long-term scale, and we would really very much welcome your ideas how this can be done to prevent further damage from happening. Thank you.
I'm Rudy Vestraten, the ambassador of Belgium in Uganda since a good year. And my EU colleague just said, we are here because we believe in the case of conservation, of natural resource management for the future generations. But I'm also here because I'm a strong believer, like you said, in cooperation with the legislative, with the parliament. It's really essential for me. And maybe I can state here, I've been in touch a number of times, 6 times I think in total, with the Forum on Tourism in your parliament. And I had the honor to sign an open letter together with Richard Kafabuza, Muhumuza. Yeah, and there's also a lady there, Nora Nyan. I have difficulty remembering the names, but Nyanduoha Pikirwa. Yeah, of course. But she's also a member of the Forum, and she took that initiative to create a forum on tourism. And tourism, conservation, natural resources, it's all interrelated. It's all the same thing, like you said, like we all say, because tourism is a huge economic sector. As we say in Belgium, tourism is part of the real economy.
Yeah.
We say that in Belgium. It's a moneymaker for this country. 12% of the taxes before Corona came from tourism. 12%, while it's only 6.7 or so percent of the GDP of the product. So they pay almost double the taxes all the other sectors pay. So it's a huge moneymaker for this country. And you were talking about your constraints in budget. Well, there is a huge future if you can develop tourism further. with the taxes they bring, all kind of taxes, VAT, taxes in lodges, taxes in restaurants, taxes. It's a formal sector. People, Ugandans working in the tourism sector, they all pay taxes. They all pay that pay as you earn, pay tax. So it's all official. So it's really a big money maker for this country. And so, but tourism, people will only continue to come if there is a reason to come. If the parks are still there, if the parks are being conserved, if the fauna and the flora are being preserved and multiplied, like the rhinos, it's a beautiful project. So it's all interrelated. So we really think that this is not for us, because we are passengers. We stay here for 4 years. Some are lucky and can stay 5, but mostly it's 4, and then we move on to another country. So it's not for our personal or even our national interests. It is in the first place for the people of Uganda, the ones you represent, their future, the work of your children, of your grandchildren, in the villages, all the communities. That is what this is about. So we really want to make a strong case for a better management of natural resources, for the maintaining the environment, conservation, and for development of tourism.
Thank you very much.
Honorable members of parliament, my name is Dr. Roswitha Kremser. I am the representative of the Republic of Austria here in this very beautiful country, and the head of the Austrian Embassy Development Cooperation Office. So I have the pleasure to not only talk but also sign contracts, which of course I share with some of my colleagues. But I just wanted to say that when I try to compare Austria to Uganda, I see the similar green environment. But when I also try to compare what percentage Austria uses of renewable energy compared to Uganda, here I see a huge gap. In Austria, we have 71% of our energy that we use from renewable sources. Most of it is water. When I drive through Uganda and I see all the water, the rivers, the mountains, I see a huge potential. I see a huge potential that is untapped. And I think here, when we look at the charcoal, how charcoal is really destroying the forest coverage of this country, it is, I think, really maybe time for Uganda to look at some other similar countries that have similar, you can use the sun energy. There are big projects in, for example, Morocco or other countries on this continent, but there's also the rivers that you have. I think really here, from your, I'd say, legislative point of view or strategic inputs, maybe to view more into increasing the percentage of renewable energy that can be used even very cost effectively. Because the other thing that I recently discovered is we are considering supporting the initiative of His Excellency the President to rebuild the wetlands. And what I was informed by going into this project idea, I was asked, why do we support a wetland restoration in the east while our focus should be in the north? And I was explained that through the river channeling and the path the water is having in the country, supporting a wetland rehabilitation in the east is actually avoiding droughts in the north. And that is why it is so important to look at natural resources as a holistic system. Whatever you do in one part of the country will have an immediate effect on other parts of the country. And when I have to say there are some positive signs that were recently discussed in the Joint Sector Review for Water and Environment. And here, very positively, the forest cover is being enlarged. I think for the first time for many, many, many years, we are now seeing in Uganda, the latest figure is here that it's now at 12.4%. Now, in the forest coverage, many of our countries have the experience that you recover forest, but you recover it with plantations. Now then, 10 years or 15 years afterwards, you would discover that those plantations you thought will do good are actually destroying the country even further. Because it's monocultures, because one bug that, for example, is a common pest in one of our forests in Austria would destroy like half of a province, because there are no barriers anymore to prevent the spread of those pests, because it's a monocultural forest, as contrast to the mixed coverage that we had previously. So I think also here it is worthwhile for you as the legislature to see those strategic viewpoints, to see that yes, positive things are being done. Yes, a dam is being built to, of course, nurture also the energy output. Yes, maybe the forest coverage is being recovered, but how? And I think here is that is where your committee plays certainly a very important oversight perspective, because you represent the people, while the government's view certainly is how fast can we increase the energy output, and your view is the long-term perspective of the interests of the people. And I think that gives you, that makes you for us a very important interlocutor. So thank you so much for this possibility to interact, and we certainly look forward to more interactions in the future. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you very much for those introductory remarks. Once again, you're most welcome. And as you mentioned, hopefully we'll be having more interactions. Just before probably something can happen in that. Yeah, I think we are seriously facing challenges of environmental threats as a result of these many areas that you've cited. And I think they are manifesting themselves here in different forms. The good thing, however, is that we have the example of River Ruizi. I don't know whether this is something that you've been following in Mbarara. It's a source of water for Mbarara, now Mbarara city. Some years back, the national water had extracted water from River Ruizi. And then after some years, because of environmental degradation, the water disappeared, receded. And actually, even right now, Mbarara city is in a crisis as to how they'll be having water. So National Water is now planning to get the water from River Kagera. But the good thing is that as a result of people realizing that there is a serious threat to their survival as a result of environmental degradation, they are now doing everything possible to ensure that they can restore the environment there around River Ruizi. And as a result of that, as a result of those initiatives, water is now gradually starting to come back, which is, I think, a good story. But anyway, now, Your Excellencies, the first point was the situation of part giveaway of Bugoma Forest for sugarcane production. Now, that's a very sad story for us as Parliament. And as Parliament, the plenary asked us to look into the matter. We are looking at it. We are looking into it at the moment. We've visited the Bugoma Forest. We've also visited a number of other forests. So when we visited the Bugoma Forest, we realized that there was something wrong going on. So then we went to some other forest around, and even Mabira forest. And unfortunately, it's not a good story that we're having there from those visits. We are preparing a report, and it's still work in progress. But generally, as a committee, we've taken that decision that we are against the giveaway of Mabira forest, and that everything possible should be done in order to recover the land that is being given away. But there is a very serious challenge that we are facing on this, which I guess you are already aware, that the matter went to court, NFA versus the Bunyoro Kingdom that are taking away. And very surprisingly, I know this does not happen in your countries, I believe, but some of the government officials, I think this is public knowledge, testified that actually the part that is being claimed by Bunyoro Kingdom is not part of the Mabira forest. And on the basis of that, we lost the case, government lost the case. The NFA or government appealed, and the matter now is at an appeal stage. But as a result of what has... Bugoma. Yeah, the matter now is at an appeal stage. But what is really disturbing is that we've had some government officials, civil servants, betraying actually their own government, and then going on the other side and testifying against the government that it's not actually their land, government land. So that's a very, very unfortunate bit of it. There is also another unfortunate bit that those who are planning to plant sugarcane, that they've got the environmental and social impact assessment partly approved by NEMA, which we also find very disturbing. Some of the key issues that are coming up, which we are just about to take to plenary for approval, and these are coming from the committee. First of all is that recognition that part of the problem we have, and which should be condemned very strongly, is the connivance between some government officials who have testified on behalf of, who went on the other side and testified on behalf of Bunyoro Kingdom that this is actually not a forest land. We're also calling for an inquiry into why those officials actually found it necessary to do that, to act the way that they acted. It's something that we are strongly condemning, and we are asking that there should be an inquiry to find out why actually these people behaved the way that they behaved. We are also asking the Minister of Lands to make public the cadastral maps regarding the boundaries of Bugoma Forest, which were used to determine that the Bunyoro Kingdom land was not part of Bugoma Forest. That's something else which we are about to ask Parliament. We're also expressing concern about NEMA's approval of Hoima Sugar Limited Terms of Reference for their environmental social impact assessment and the ongoing environmental social impact assessment process, which we don't think that it should have happened in view of the ongoing case and in view of the controversy around the whole thing. There have also been several reports before, some of them done by ministerial inquiries into this matter. In our report, we are asking the government to publicize those reports so that we know what is it that has actually been said before. And I think that would be a very good starting point for us to handle, for Parliament to be able to handle this matter. Then there is also a draft environmental impact assessment regulations, which are aimed at guarding against such illegal projects or controversial projects, where we are saying that actually this should be speedily finalized, so that if there are regulations against issuing of environmental impact assessment with the projects which are controversial or which are not yet clearly agreed, then if that was in place, this, what has happened to Bugoma Forest would not have happened. So those are some of the things. Okay, we're also suggesting that government should use its land acquisition powers under Article 26 of the Constitution to save Bugoma Forest. Now, those are some of the views that are coming from the committee. Of course, they are bound to be discussed further and then developed by the whole Parliament. But also there is something interesting that's coming up on the part of the Bunyoro Kingdom. They are saying that, okay, we're also interested in environmental protection. Can the government negotiate with the Bunyoro Kingdom in view of a judgment that has already been entered, that this bit belongs to Bunyoro Kingdom? Can the government enter into an arrangement with Bunyoro Kingdom and pay off the investor? Okay, pay Bunyoro Kingdom, and then the Bunyoro Kingdom pays the investor, in which case then the investor surrenders their interest in that land, and then the land reverts back to government. That's something also which has to be discussed with the government, and I think that's the situation at the moment on Bugoma. Yes, sir, Your Excellency.
I have a very precise question on this for your advice. When we are going to that area, Bugoma Forest, and we visit the city of Hoima, we are going to meet the cultural institution, Kingdom.
Oh.
And we're also going to meet Hoima Sugar. We're going to the company. Hoima Sugar. So my question to you is, do you have any advice on what messages we could deliver, what questions we could ask these two in particular, the Kingdom and Hoima Sugar, in order to favor your case? What would help you if we said it, if we did it, if we asked? What would help you as a parliament?
Okay, I don't know what my colleague may say about that, but the dilemma that we have now is that it's now a matter which has been established by court, that this land belongs to Bunyoro Kingdom. So the only two things that can happen now, unless government pays Bunyoro Kingdom, in which case it buys out the interest of Bunyoro Kingdom from this land, then probably nothing is likely to happen. But on the other hand also, what may happen is just a court of law deciding that actually the judge was in error. So I don't know whether there is anything different on this that can be done, but colleagues here can come in.
Thank you very much. For me, what I would request you to ask Bunyoro Kingdom and whereas they thought this was a simple matter, maybe in their own outlook they looked at business and the money and all that. It has now become a big matter. So they must appreciate that fact. Therefore, my view is that the current activities by Bunyoro Sugar and the Hoima company should be at least delayed.
It was on Al Jazeera.
Yeah. It should be delayed. They give us, they put off whatever they are doing, so that we get enough consultation with the government. Because at the end of the day, it is also government which has a lot to do or which has failed to do what they are supposed to do. Because I don't know the national planning framework of government in terms, because government departments are fighting. NEMA authorizes. Court says, so government should be given enough time. We should tell them, stop doing what we are doing. We get enough time with the government. Also as activists and parliament, we have enough time to press back. Because if we are, what the chairman is saying, this is a lot of work. If we are doing this work, but the Hoima sugar is continuing to destroy the environment. By the time we end this long process, we shall find nothing. Therefore, we should have some halt of what is happening, be given 1 or 2 years, then we sort out this one with the government, so that we all form together, put pressure on the government when the forest is still available.
Yes, sir.
But Chair, there are always issues surrounding a matter which is already in court. And I think the issue of Bugoma Forest is an issue that is already in court. And like you have heard from Chair, the cultural institution won, and then there is an appeal case, which I think is in court. So if they are to hold on to the matter of developing the area that they claim, then that should be achieved through a court process. You cannot achieve it by negotiation on table. Very difficult. But I think they'll need a court order that restrains them from going ahead with developing the area, short of which they may not listen. But I am also glad that you intend to undertake a tour to such an area. Part of the problem that we have is that all our forest covers have been encroached, heavily encroached, and not only in Bugoma, but throughout the country. I think if we interfaced with National Forest Authority, we should be able to get data on the extent to which forests in Uganda have been encroached. But it is heavily encroached, and even if you get cadastral maps, it will show you where the forest land is. But now with people, there are people who have settled in this area for quite a very long time. And then there are also new developments, like the one of Bugoma we are talking about. So there would definitely be need to resettle those who have been in such an area for a very long time. And you may not now recover the entire area of the forest. So I think my appeal is that we need to, if we could be proactive and also see how we can help in the area of sustainable recovery and also maintaining the area and the forest cover that belongs to National Forest Authority. There are pillars that should be able to show that this land belongs to the National Forest Authority. But even currently, the government of Uganda cannot provide adequate resources for National Forest Authority to be able to put those pillars. So every time and again you find people encroaching. You just go and then find a very open piece of land. People graze there. People go and build houses. They settle there. People cut down the trees. But I think we need to think of a way we can have these forest reserves maintained by way of having pillars put in place, so that even if we go into restoration of the forest cover in areas that they are cut, at least we are sure the land has been protected. But as it is at the moment, our land, the forest covers, the forest reserves are not protected. So anybody can go in and out.
Just from my understanding, because I very well note your point, encroaching and people going to live in forest area, that is something that happens, unfortunately. And there are often people, not the most wealthy people, they are the poor people in villages and local communities who want to have a small piece of land to have their own little garden or little mini farm. But here, we're talking of something completely different, of a huge area, not encroached by some villages, but by a company, a big company, Hoima Sugar, in agreement with people in government, as we hear, public servants, in agreement with NEMA, in agreement with some high-up people who decide that this should happen. This is not encroachment, this is much, much more significant. And it should also be easier to stop, because if you have to stop all the little people take in 1 acre, that is a hard fight, and it's a worthwhile fight, but it's a convincing. But this is just one big slab of the forest, just going in one single goal, where a court approves it, And now of course, it's in appeal. But a court of Uganda has approved that transaction. So I think this is a different dimension we're talking about. When we talk about Bugoma Forest sugar cane, it's not encroaching. It is a major deal done with the consent of some people high up, which should never have been done. That's my feeling.
Your Excellency, before you come in, Your Excellency, I think what Honorable is mentioning is in the context that this is so prominent because it's a big way. It is very obvious. But we're also having problem of encroachment. So that's a secondary problem that is causing deforestation. So it's the two problem. Yes, Your Excellency.
No, I was going to say that I'm not sure whether there is a possibility to stop the process. Ideally, through an appeal, one could stop and actually could make sure that the issues are reversed to where they were before the wrong decision was made. But here we have evidence based on, there are some European satellites passing over that forest every day.
Yeah.
And we have images from those satellites proving that every day the area cleared is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So whatever you do, even if there is an appeal succeeding, and you cannot go back because the damage is done. Actually, we could even share these photographs. Have we sent them to the office of the Prime Minister? Those, yes, we can share them with the Parliament as well, just for you to see.
Okay.
I don't know when we can get the next photo. Today. Okay, so basically maybe it's not every day that the satellites, maybe every week, maybe they have to elaborate data, but there are 12 satellites all over the world owned by the European Union, and we have an agreement with the Prime Minister to share images of different areas of Uganda, and this one is something new, so we would be delighted to share it with you as well. Just to see what is happening. It's bad, it's really bad. And every day it gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
So, Your Excellencies, I think that's where the point that Honorable Ngavirano has brought in may be very, very helpful. That maybe you can ask for the delay, but on the other hand, they are not doing it officially. I think that's what makes it a little bit complicated. But
yeah, just a small idea. Going forward, how do you advise us in the legislative angle? You could have probably seen our legislative framework having certain gray area, which you think as a committee we could push for strengthening of such areas to be able to safeguard our environment. What is your view? What advice can you give us as a committee? Because we can pick it up. If government cannot take it on, we can probably push it as a private member. But looking at our legislative framework, how do we guard this kind of practice for purposes of the future? You could also...
I would personally call in the Attorney General immediately for a full brief about legal status and options.
right.
I mean, he's the one who has to take issues up on behalf of the government. He is the one who represents the government in these matters. So he should be able to take you through options, legal options, and maybe even file a restraining order. I mean, there are legal options.
He is from the West, eh? Yaruhanga, that's it.
Yes. I think he's even upset about this whole affair.
Yes, Your Excellency.
I think my Swedish colleague was before me, but...
Yes.
Women first.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I just also wanted to bring in the human dimensions, because beyond the court case that is currently there, beyond the environmental impact assessment that has been ongoing, and beyond, of course, all the negotiations that are currently ongoing between legislative, executive, and judicative, there are also some activists who have been trying, Ugandan activists, very young, courageous people, some of them more mature, but some of them very young and activists trying to advocate for what they call the Safe Bugoma Forest initiative. We have been seeing that some of them were hindered in their activism by some, I would say, some points that I've been seeing was by simply taking away their PAN cards from very peaceful online campaigns that they have been doing. I have also been reading in newspapers about arrests. I think here it is also maybe you, as the representatives of the people, to maybe speak about those that are fighting not for their own personal goals. They don't defend any economic interest. They don't defend even any interest of a political nature. What they are defending is the cause of this forest being preserved for future generations, for their children, of their own children. And I think that is a noble cause. We see this initiative, young people, half of my age, and I'm yet young, but we see them standing, starting to stand on the streets for environmental preservation. And I think it doesn't augur very well that courageous young people are being blocked, while you, as the legislator, are also defending the same cause. I think maybe you also want to engage the executive and some of their more muscled arms in how to deal with such very peaceful environmental activists. Because what I've seen, at least on the little that I've seen, is what is just a pity. I think it's a pity for the country. And in today's days, such news make it around the globe. Make it to Greta, from Greta to the Security United Nations Secretary General, from him to all the leaders of the world. So I think it would augur also very well for this House to stand by the people and stand by those activists that really don't defend any personal interest, at least from what I can see from the little knowledge that I have.
Thank you. No, it was a question not specifically on the Bugoma forest, but maybe more general about the deforestation in Uganda. We are all aware of the problem that the great majority of the people are using firewood and charcoal for cooking. And I'm just wondering how the discussion goes in the parliament when it comes to discussing alternative energy sources. Of course, I mean, gas is an option, but I understand there is a tax on LPG, I'm just wondering, I mean, if there is a discussion to exempt LPG from this tax in order to create an option for the people, an alternative instead of using charcoal and firewood, which destroys the environment very much.
Maybe one last question, and then I will not talk ever again.
No problem, Your Excellency.
I remember many years ago there was a big fight, and the government was very, very, very committed and fought very, very hard to make Cibale National Forest a national park. It was difficult because there were people living in the forest, but somehow the issue was sorted out, and now Cibale is protected, is part of the Queen Elizabeth National Park, is something that nobody will ever really could. Maybe Bugoma be considered for an upgrade if the National Forestry Authority is not as strong as the Uganda Wildlife Authority or the ministry in charge to protect this key asset for the country forever. Couldn't maybe the upgrading into a national park be a solution from a national forest to upgrade it, put under the responsibility of somebody who has the means, the strength, the ability, the vision for this kind of work? Another possibility. This is a legal thing. Maybe there is a way.
Goma National Park.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman. Okay.
Yes, Honorable.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to start with his, and I had it here that as you go to Bugoma, as you look at the dilemma in the National Forest Authority, I wanted us to make that comparison, and luckily enough you have brought it. The comparison, because we have the natural forests which we have. They are held in various authorities. You have a National Forest Authority, then you have Uganda Wildlife Authority.
Yeah.
Uganda Wildlife Authority is very successful.
Yeah.
It is what you have as intact. All the areas under them are intact. Now, that's what I was raising. I was going to say we have to make a study. How is your surviving? How is your succeeding?
Uganda Wildlife
Authority. What we need, we may not upgrade Bugoma to a UWA, because that question has previously come in Parliament, and I think even some members were moving to that extent. But what we are saying is that why can't National Forest Authority be strengthened to the levels of UWA? Because over the years, National Forest Authority relaxed. They relaxed, and they do not have an enforcement wing.
Yeah.
So when we were in Parliament, we said let's have environment police, because UWA has an independent force. You know, they have their guards, and they are armed, and they have been getting good money. So what we've been saying that let's replicate what is happening in UWA, we bring it to National Forest Authority. We have previously asked National Forest Authority as a committee, as Parliament. Of course, they are talking about issues of financing. So they believe if they can be financed and we develop a comprehensive plan, they can as well have that big force and reach the extent of war. European Union have been one of the supporters of the forest sector in Uganda previously. Okay. But you know, recently you cascaded down. So that's one of the areas we can look at. The commitment from the officials of National Forest Authority, the commitment is there if they can be supported, and if the environment police can be made a separate force under them, and they have the independence like you have, they believe they can do that job. So, but in the meantime, Bugoma, as I said, is a case that we have to grapple with. Yeah. That would be like some long-term discussion of strengthening the National Forest Authority, because they are talking of marking their forests properly, having pillars, having a force, having stations, because they used to have forest stations in all these forest reserves with the guide of the people. All those forest stations are not in existence. So that is a comprehensive plan we can discuss with them. But in the meantime, on Bugoma, we can use activism, as she says. That's what I was saying. As soon as you go there, let's look at how to stop this one. Then we all congregate together and do whatever we can and make it a national. Even you, as European Union, can make it. You issue your policy guideline. You say we are for this. You know how you put your conditions. Me, that one would encourage it. As soon as you are there, you come out. You write to government. This one must stop because of this and this. Then the pictures are there. So that's my approach to that one. We have the initiative, but we need now to strengthen the National Forest Authority in those aspects of financing, of human resource, and building their camps and all that. Then the question which he raised about about how to stop the charcoal burning and all that. You see, we have two types of. We have a problem of land ownership in this country. The Constitution gives the land to the people. So government cannot just has very little control on public land. Therefore, government has stayed with land in NFA. But when the NFA Act came in place, NFA is strictly for government land, the protected forest reserve. But when you look at land ownership, we have much of the land owned by us, the civilians, the people. So whereas we are looking at forest, we are looking at only the central forest reserves. But we are supposed to have what we call the National Forest Service. which is supposed to be helping in the ministry, which is supposed to be helping us, the people, to have enough tree cover. So one of the ways to stop the deforestation and all this is to have many trees, a lot of tree cover on the private land. You know, European Union have been very helpful in this one under the Sorog production, that project. If you look at how much forest was developed under your grant, which was given to the Sorog production grant to the private sector, it has done a lot. Me, as a member of parliament, I have taken a community initiative where I have put up public nurseries. Those public nurseries, people have planted trees. So one of the answers that if we can have an initiative to support people, much as we are cutting trees, but we can have tree cover improved on the private ownership, on the private land, then we can have many trees. But also as we look at the energy mix of this country, we are doing the energy mix politically, not technically. You see now our president is excited with the energy. That's why we are looking at that beautiful falls, because the president looks at wants the energy, but we need to develop a country-wide energy mix program. We know that we need so much from hydro, we need so much from solar, so that we have a comprehensive energy mix, and we know, so that we are not now, because if we had an energy mix, and we know that we need so much from hydro, now we do not just wake up, because this is an initiative, an investor who wants to make money, looks at those falls and says, I want the falls. Because for him, he mentioned the number of kilowatts once produced, now government is convinced. But if we could have a properly formulated energy mix of the country, because we have all the resources, all the renewable resources we have the wind, we have the sunshine, the solar, we even have a lot of for nuclear energy. We have a lot of the mineral. All those we have. So we need to develop that comprehensive energy mix so that we can stop this. Then the other one, I attended two meetings of the United Nations Convention on Climate Change. And one of the other issues we had is the technology. We are talking of LPG, the gas. How many people in this country can use the gas? How many have the houses that can have the gas wiring and all those machinery? So we need to European Union here, you need to be helped in simple technologies. How we can have the technology transfer, some simple technologies for us to use in our, because if I go to the village, people can use biogas, but the technology, the investment, the knowledge, the sensitization is not there. So in the long run, we need to look at these simple technology transfers, look at supporting whether we start by areas that can be used as examples, but we need to look at the issues of that technology. We have been talking about it in Parliament, technology transfer, financing, the priorities of government because of the little envelope, all these things, but also even the sensitization itself. Where we have sensitized for where I've done that community forest, people have adopted it, they are doing it very well. So I think this is, in the long run, we need to look at all those aspects, technology transfer, then rapid electrification. Whereas now government is telling us we have excess energy. Because now we are using 600 megawatts, but we have 800, and we shall be going to 1,000 next year. But in my view, in all our villages, the electricity is not there. It's not wired. So if you tell somebody you have no electricity, you have no LPG, you have nothing, you don't have your private wood road, so the connectivity is still very low. So we need something a bit comprehensive. We give it some time frame, I think we can achieve some of these things. Then the issue of government, which we can bring to government, the authority of government is how it is disaggregated. You have UA is successful, NFA is not, NEMA is giving a certificate, court is awarding this, but this is the same government. Land is not owned by government, so the government itself needs to be put on pressure so that we can have a more comprehensive plan that can address all these anomalies.
So, Your Excellencies, just as a conclusion on this point, and then we move on to Murchison Falls. I think in your meeting, Your Excellencies, it would be very helpful if you can bring it to the attention of Bunyoro Kingdom that actually is a lot of deforestation that's going on now, even before the case has been settled in court. I think that what is happening is very unfortunate. But also, if there is a way that they can hold on, of course, officially, if there is anything that they are planning to do officially, if they can hold on action, that will also be very helpful. Now, of course, there is that, as you've pointed out, Your Excellency, the possibility of further engagement with our Attorney General on legal options that are available. That's something that we'll be following up. But I think the most practical solution, as it seems now, would appear to be that government raises money to compensate the Bunyoro Kingdom, so as a way of buying out their interest. I think that's the most practical way of sorting this out. We don't know what will come out of the appeal. It's something that we can look forward to. Of course, there is the point that Your Excellency, you raised about the activists, and that we need to speak up more for them because they are not championing just a personal interest and there's nothing political about it. That's something that we'll be very keen to take on with our colleagues on the committee and actually across Parliament. So thank you very much for that, for your discussion on that and any possible support that you may give to help save Bugoma. And I'm sure the people of Uganda will be very much excited about that. Now, on the next issue, which is the status of dam construction on Murchison Falls, that one, we were asked by Parliament to look into it, and as a specialist committee, we did look into it and we issued a report which has been looked at and has been adopted by Parliament. Unfortunately, we've not yet had the response of the Minister of Energy. I'm sorry, I've had scribbled certain things on in the margins, but it's nothing confidential.
You can show, this is the report of the committee for the Parliament.
Yeah, which is signed.
Okay.
Don't mind about yes, please.
And Parliament has adopted that report.
Don't mind about my scribbles. It was just to bring out the key highlights.
July 2020. It's very fresh.
Yeah, and basically what that report says. Now, what that report is saying is that Cabinet considered the matter first on 26th of August. Then, considered a company applied a company applied for a license for establishment of a 360 megawatt hydropower plant on River Nile, and this was by a company called Bonang Power and Energy Limited. And at that point in time, they wanted to undertake a detailed feasibility study that would result in the issuance of a license establishing a hydropower near Murchison Falls. Now, in their view, the way it was initially presented to Parliament, it was that they are not actually constructing a power dam on Murchison Falls, but that they are constructing it on Uhuru Falls, which they were saying they are two different things altogether. Now, this was rejected by our regulatory agency, ERA. And then Cabinet considered it consecutively, 26 August, 25th November. But at a point in time later, they decided that, okay, let's do the feasibility study and get a scientific diagnosis of what the problem may or may not be, and decide on how best to proceed. Now, Parliament then decided to look into that. And when we looked at it, first we found that what they are talking about as Uhuru Falls and Murchison Falls actually are one. That is just one place. They are not that much different. We also found out that Uhuru Falls did emerge as a result of, I think, high-rise waters on Murchison Falls, and that's how we ended up with the Uhuru Falls. We also realized that both had the same coordinates, which then actually made it very difficult because the basis of proceeding was that the two were different. But we found out that they have the same coordinates. And also, there is another part in the report there which says that there has been a few reports before on this same matter, whether a hydropower can be established and a hydropower dam can be established on Murchison Falls. There was a report which is actually mentioned by Bonang in their application, which was a report which was done, a feasibility study which was done by the Uganda government. There is also something mentioned about it in the hydropower master plan, which was completed in 1997 for the government of Uganda. There is something also to do with the Japan International Development Corporation, which produced a master plan for Uganda in 2011, mentioning a possibility and the pros and cons of constructing a hydropower dam on Murchison Falls. But all of these agencies have ended up recommending that if we are to proceed, it will be at a very high cost to the environment, and therefore it's not advisable to go ahead with it. Of course, they also mentioned that there are several other sites that have been cited which can be developed other than on the Murchison Falls. But there is also another question which is now coming up, that can we diversify our energy mix so that instead of just focusing on hydropower, we also look at solar, geothermal, wind energy. Then there are issues around the strategic importance of Murchison Falls. Murchison Falls being a national park, being a Ramsar site, being an important bird area, which actually will all be threatened in the event that the hydropower is developed there. Then there is also the issue of this being a heritage site. It's a heritage site for Bunyoro. I'm sure you're aware that sometimes referred to as Kabalega Falls. So there is a big public outcry coming from Bunyoro that this is invading their sacred site, which actually they've treasured from generation to generation. Actually, there was a plaque which was laid there in 2013 in commemoration of Kabalega and their great ancestors. So it's actually a site treasured, very highly treasured. And then, of course, there are threats of a host of other petroleum activities, oil and gas petroleum activities that are going on in the area, all of them having serious threat to the environment there. And as a result of that, there is that feeling. Actually, Parliament agreed that we shouldn't proceed with this very strongly. But there is also something very interesting, which is from the stakeholders, the stakeholder views. They had, when ERA issued invitation of public opinion, 9,204 commented. And these were representing a host of agencies, including Uganda Wildlife Authority, NEMA, Uganda Tourism Board, of course, the Bunyoro Kitala Kingdom, Association of Uganda Tours and Operator, IUCN, several of them, altogether 9,204. But very, very interestingly and very unprecedented, all but one, 9,203 said No. Very, very.
I wonder who this one is.
Yeah. These are some of the key agencies. They want to.
Yes.
So there was an overwhelming objection. Only one said we should proceed, although we don't know, we didn't find out who this one was. But also, ERA raised serious issues. The company that had applied to develop this power dam did not have an address in Uganda. So its legal status was not that well established. So there were things to do with the legal, there were things to do with the technical, financial, environmental requirements, and then contravention of international treaties in relation to the area which they were applying to develop. And because of that, our regulatory agency rejected the application. Then, of course, there are issues of climate change, which we talked about earlier, which are very serious threats now to our country. Now, because of all these, first of all, that the assumption was that these are two different areas, Uhuru and then Murchison Falls, which then we are saying it's one area, same coordinates. The assumption was that they will not be touching on Murchison Falls, and that they are touching on Uhuru Park. But according to our investigation, we found that it was one. Then, in view of the fact that preliminary studies have previously indicated that Uhuru project will be at a high cost, actually, even Murchison Falls, that it will be very high cost, we concluded that it's not a good idea to go ahead with the feasibility study on the Murchison Falls. And that's where we've left it. We've not yet had, because we presented this report in, was it in September? And as you know, we've been in campaigns. Parliament somehow has been on and off because of the election calendar. So we haven't had we debated it as members of Parliament, and agreed on adopted the report, but we haven't had the feedback, the response from the Ministry of Energy and the Mineral Development. So that's where we are as Parliament on this matter.
Frankly, I'm impressed, Chairman. I think these are really, really strong arguments.
Yeah.
And I would really be shocked if somebody came up saying, I don't agree. I mean, this is absolutely fair, solid arguments, totally understandable. I mean, some of the issues, actually, we noticed even ourselves.
Right.
What you mentioned about the Uhuru and Murchison, I mean, they are like this. It's the same place. And still, many people during our very, very diplomatic talks told us, no, this is a different thing. There will be no problem for the Murchison Falls. So, I mean, I'm delighted that the Parliament came up so strongly, and I hope there will be very soon a final line drawn on these issues, because already last year there was what was supposed to be a final decision by government saying no, and then the issues were reopened again. No, thank you for sharing this.
Thank you. This is not confidential. It was
Yes.
openly debated on the plenary. Okay. So,
Thank you very much for sharing. I had seen this text, the way it is written and composed, and very interesting. Thank you.
okay. So the final point is implementation of the presidential directive. Implementation of the presidential directive to cancel land titles issued in wetlands. Now, on this one, of course, this is being implemented. The lead agency is NEMA, which initiates the action.
Yeah.
But the agency to cancel the agency to cancel the land titles is the Ministry of Land through the Land Commission. Now, The current status, according to NEMA, the Ministry of Lands initiated the cancellation of the 48. Anyway, they are more than 48, but initially has initiated the cancellation of 49 land titles, and these are mainly Namamve to Luzira industrial parks, the electricity transmission lines, and 5 along the Entebbe transmission line. However, the owners of the land titles ran to court seeking halting the exercise, as well as contesting the cabinet directive. The court decided against the government, but Attorney General has appealed in the higher courts, and at the court the case has not yet been determined. Okay, but also the NEMA approved the construction of Jinja Expressway and the standard railway across some of the wetlands that had these titles in Namamve and the Chinawataka wetlands. Unfortunately, again, over 2,000 occupants took NEMA to court in 2016, and the whole exercise of eviction and cancellation of land title has been halted. There has been no judgment delivered yet. Probably I can also mention that there are we have wetlands which developed naturally. So it could be that somebody is owning land, it's a freehold, and then part of it becomes a wetland. Now, the current understanding, the government policy at the moment, is that that can be regulated. Somebody remains the owner of the land, of that part, can have a land title on it, but that area is regulated and can only use it on approval of the National Environment Management Authority. And the idea is that the activities that they undertake there do not disturb or endanger the environment there. But then there are other wetlands which are well known on the banks of the river and the banks of lakes. So those are the ones where government had the idea that can be cancelled. But it's hitting a snag because of legal action.
Yeah.
Yes, madam.
Yes, thank you very much. I think on the wetland restoration, which of course is the main issue here on the cancelling of land titles, that is an important part of the restoration of wetlands. I think here in the recent sector review of water and environment, actually I would say the ministry shouted alarm. The recent figures that I just...
The last review?
Yes, I did. I tried to be there physically since I see several challenges with online meetings, but I had of course my mask and was well protected, but I tried to be there in the beginning since I thought it was a very important meeting. But actually here the figures are in contrast to the forest restoration, which has a positive trend. Here the figures are not very encouraging. The wetland coverage, as it says here, is currently at 8.9%, while in 1994 it was 15.6%. So here we see a gradual degradation of the wetland area that is covered. And we can see it also from when we look at the floodings and when we look at the droughts. We actually can, scientists, not myself, but scientists can draw some of it directly to the degradation of or the evaporation of wetlands. And I think here really, when we look at how many droughts, how many floodings this country had to suffer recently, I think urgent action is really needed. The presidential initiative I think it is very important. And here we can see that the implementation of it is what is very challenging. Of course, it is very challenging because you cannot easily take somebody who has been living on that soil and trying to use it for the daily survival out. We all understand this. So I think what has to be done is to try to provide alternatives to those people that are in the wetlands. So to try to give them livelihood projects, to try to designate them different types of income. And I think some of this is ongoing. At least I know that the United Nations and the Green Climate Fund are having some of those project ideas. And I think it is just essential when we look at the number of floodings that were really suffered. The trends are just really at an alarming level, and any initiative that can be done from your house to support and to stop the wetland degradation, I think is would be very helpful to this current trend, because the figures, as we can see them from the ministry, are really alarming. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. By the way, there was a cup of tea. Okay, yeah. Excellent plan. But not many of us have made use of it. Yes, Your Excellency.
A very brief last question. After the elections, who will be the next speaker?
There is something interesting.
It's an easy question.
I don't know whether it's the same tradition you have in your countries. In UK, the speaker is dragged to the chair. So I don't know who will
Dragged to the chair. The speaker refuses to take the chair. Symbolically, yeah?
Yes.
It's like a resisting. Not a difficult job, because you have to keep balance in the parliament. You cannot stand for your party. You cannot stand for your personal views. You have to speak to stand for the parliament as an institution.
Yeah, it used to be very difficult that they were, in order to balance things, they would make decisions which the kings and others didn't want, so they would be executed.
It's a risky job.
As a result of that, they would just be dragged there.
So that is your what you expect, that the next speaker will have to be dragged?
Yeah, we'll fight for it.
We'll see about that.
We have to fight for it, so we don't know who is coming down.
That's a good comparison.
But I'm sure Madam Speaker will be there. Madam Rebecca will be there. I'm sure she still stands a good chance, and several others will also be seeking to get this in.
And our rules of procedure of Parliament of Uganda provides for the processes that are undertaken to elect this and the deputy. So the provisions are in our rules of procedure.
Okay. Maybe just one last question. I was wondering, Mr. Chair, has the issue of Zoka Forest ever been brought to your attention?
Actually,
in Zoka Forest, the issue was brought here, and it was publicized even on Ugandan press. I remember the story of how they went and I think we have, before I became chair, we have a report. We have a field visit to that forest, and we have made recommendations, but I think we need to follow it up. It is a matter of following it up, because it was a bit of some conspiracy with some people who were just existing and it had a lot of natural wood, and we found out there was some racket involving some security personnel. So we have made a report to government, and I think the report is due for is being implemented. What we need is now to follow it up like this other one, to see what is being done. And when the team went there, the local leadership was a bit supportive and all that, and I think we need to get an update from NFA.
So there was a visit of members from the European
from the Parliament. The Parliament went there, made the observations, and the observations were shared, and the recommendations were shared with the government. And I think government and NFA should be implementing what So we just need to get that
That's
feedback.
recommended.
But our stand is very clear. We could not allow that. It was condemned, and it is another area where we put a lot of effort as Parliament, as a committee.
No, thank you for this. We took so much of your time, but it was, I think it was very important for us to understand the kind of challenges that we are all facing, but that the Parliament has faced and has addressed. For instance, for the marching on Falls, I knew that there was a lot going on, but I didn't know that the Parliament had gone through so deeply.
Parliament has done a lot. Even on wetlands, we have done a lot. We have the other year we passed a very good new law. We have a new environment law, which has all these, including oil and gas. And
Have you seen that?
I haven't. I don't know. Maybe my colleagues. Yeah, you have it. We have it at the office,
the
Charlie.
new Environment Act is very comprehensive, including financing. All this.
I think that has been our
It
greatest
is a very big
achievement
achievement we have made.
as a Committee on Environment
Committee on
and
Environment.
Natural Resources.
The expert in my embassy tells me that we know about it, but I haven't gone through it personally. I must admit my ignorance.
Actually, having heard from our public hearings, actually we try to bring in some ideas,
Yeah.
like law on right of nature. I don't know whether that's familiar. We thought that some of the activists or interested parties in the environment will bring action,
Yeah.
for instance, on the forest being destroyed or something like that. But unfortunately, we haven't seen much about it, because the whole idea was taking the powers, not taking the powers, but sharing the powers between the government and the ordinary people who are interested, who care about the environment, to make sure that they themselves take action. We've not seen much about that. And then, of course, there was also the controversial area of in Uganda we call it Kavera.
Yes. That was also
The polythene bags.
the polythene bag. Yes.
We managed to strike a balance
Yeah.
between the two different groups. The groups saying we must have a total ban on one hand, and the group saying it's not possible to have a total ban. So we ban carrier bags which are under 30 microns and allow the ones which are above 30 microns. And we also encourage the recycling. Again, there may be problems in the implementation of that law, and I think there is a move somehow to see that it's reviewed, although it's still early in its implementation, that is reviewed in order to achieve a total ban. I know that some institutions like the Church of Uganda have issued a total ban on polythene bags in the churches, and several other initiatives that are coming on, putting on increased tax on polythene bags. But what we are trying to encourage from our perspective as Parliament is recycling, probably as eventually we work towards what is now being globally accepted as a total ban. So that's where we are.
In terms of cooperation with the executive.
Chairman,
sorry.
I have a visitor at my office at 4 p.m., so please excuse me. Thank you very much for this very interesting, very instructive meeting. It was really memorable and very, very helpful for me.
Thank you very much. Yes.
No, I was just wondering whether in terms of engagements with the executive, whether there was anything that we could do in terms of passing messages in areas where the reaction from the executives has been not as encouraging as Parliament would have wished, since we meet several and we work with several line ministries.
Okay.
If there is anything that we could maybe pass as a message.
I think on issues of environment, of course, other than this Machoni Falls, I think we've been very much at par.
Okay.
Actually, they came to us one time with a list of land titles in the forest where they wanted our help to stop some of these, make sure that some of these land titles are cancelled. So I think there may be a few areas, I don't know what my colleagues have to say about this, but there may be a few areas here and there where we disagree. But generally...
I think the cooperation we enjoy is greatest at policy level. Ministers coming to parliament, and we are working together. But the biggest challenge is at the technical level. Yeah, because you see, you want to cancel land titles issued to owners by the same government. And the government is represented by technical people in those various offices. So government has to protect the wetlands, but again, it is government issuing land titles to people who are degrading the wetlands. So it's a very delicate balance. But at policy level, we relate fairly well.
Yeah.
So the problem is down at the technical level, people who implement these policies.
And maybe the other point is that as Parliament, in terms of if we were requested to do our work, whether policy or oversight, we did very good. Oversight, we did very good. Oversight, we did very good. Oversight,